be seated, sir. We're back on the record. Ms. Sesmas is present. All other pertinent necessary are present out of the presence of the jury. Mr. Smart, what's Ms. Sesmas' status?
Judge, Ms. Sesmas has gotten, she's vomited in the back. I went back and talked to her, and she is telling me that she's having a hard time. She says that she's having still pains in her chest when she stands. She's having, I think, some pains in her head. I think she's upset in her stomach, and I think she's having a hard time.
I can understand the emotional stress being a defendant in this kind of case can cause. Once I hear something different, though, I'm going to say that unless she wants to voluntarily absent herself from the court and allow the proceedings to continue, I'll have her stay and we'll continue the proceedings. Stay, wish to weigh in on that?
Not this time. It comes fast and we'll make whatever is appropriate.
All right.
We're ready to proceed.
All right.
With Ms. Sesmas present.
Yes, all right, thank you. Mr. Wild, you want to take up the,
Yes, sir. In regard to States Exhibits 73 and 74, 73 is a photograph of a pelican that was found on the kitchen floor in the house down in Dallas, and 74 is a close-up of that pelican. The state had wanted to admit that both of those as evidence. The court sustained Mr. Smart's objection as to relevancy. I fully respect that decision. However, what I would like to do with the court's permission is to have Detective McMurray identify those photographs and establish a foundation for their admission should the court think that the circumstances have changed and they become relevant. So,
and the detective not present at that time?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'll allow that. Mr. Smart, you know all that?
No, I mean, it's objectionable to me as, based on our suppression motions pre-trial, but I don't have any objection to the idea of providing a contingent foundation so that this detective doesn't have to.
I'll allow you to do that. Won't you do that now, Mr. Weiler?
Thank you. Detective McMurray, I'm showing you States Exhibits 73 and 74. Can you identify those, sir?
Yes, I can. 23 is a somewhat wider view of the kitchen area of the house at 210 Signet Street in Dallas.
910?
I'm sorry, 910.
You might double check the number on the exhibit.
The number, I believe, is 73, is it not? My 7s and 2s sometimes confuse people.
Is that a 73?
That is, in fact, a 7. Does that help?
Yes. Photograph number 73 is the kitchen area of the house at 910 Signet Street in Dallas. The kitchen table, kitchen chairs are visible, and a pellet pistol is lying on the tile floor.
And number 74 is a close-up of that pellet pistol.
Yes, it is.
Those items were seized and taken into evidence by the Dallas Police Department.
Yes, that's correct.
And from the photographs, 73 is a photograph of how the item appeared when you entered the house on November 19th.
Yes, that's correct. It accurately depicts what I saw.
Okay. And I believe that's all I have on that issue. Well, if we move to conditionally admit, should the court determine that they become wrong?
Mr. Smart, any questions? Okay, on conditional admission, I'll admit 73 and 74. Is the state anticipating playing, or at least summarizing for the jury, the interview by Ms. Sesmas with Detective Ortiz and Detective Tennessee?
We anticipate using Detective Ortiz for
I'm sorry, what was it?
we intend to use Detective Ortiz Divas for testimony concerning the content of the interview.
And do you intend to elicit from him the statement Ms. Sesmas made that she did not intend to hurt, was not her intent to hurt?
We intend to admit the statement basically in its entirety, which would include, of course,
Having had time to reflect over personal ruling, that statement is contained in her interview that is directly relevant to intent. If you did not intend to hurt, why not take a pellet gun as opposed to a .40 caliber gun? Our reversal ruling will allow direct admission of those at this time to this witness.
Thank you, sir.
Anything further you'd like to place on that issue on the record, Mr. Smart?
Judge, just a clarification, is Mr. Weller saying that he intends to put Mrs. Sesmas' statement in its entirety in as played video exhibit or some other form, or just hoping for some clarification since he did say
I don't know, but through Detective Ortiz in some manner.
Through Detective Ortiz, just asking questions and getting answers. The video itself is in Spanish, so it's not going to be very helpful.
All right. That'll be my ruling then. Are we ready for the jury?
State's right.
You're all right. Just like to know for the record that we exchanged this idea to translate the defendant.
Enough of that for the jury.
Thank you.
We're ready for the jury?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Smart, ready for the jury?
Yes, Judge.
Here, bring the jury in, please.
Yeah, true.
And Jimmy, thank you for your patience. We also have had a change of translators. Now Ms. Padilla, Ms. Doolittle's won't be with us for the rest of the afternoon. Ready to resume examination of the detective?
Yes, sir.
You would please, Mr. Weiler.
Thank you.
Judge, for the purpose of the record, we do have a new interpreter.
I just said that.
Sorry. It's that I was taking that.
You remind me of my wife. Not looks, but the way she listens to me. I mean that nicely, Mr. Smart.
Okay, I'm going to try this one more time. I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 32 through 74. You've had an opportunity to look through those, have you not?
I have.
And are they all photographs taken during the taken at 910 Signet in Dallas, Texas, during the execution of the search warrant?
Yes, they are.
Are they all accurate representations of that scene as it was on the morning of November 18th, 2016?
I think you mean the morning of November the 19th.
I do indeed.
And yes, they are accurate representations.
Your Honor, we move for the admission of State's Exhibits 32 through 74.
Mr. Smart, you do have a continuing notation of your prior position. Any additional objections?
I think we made two different kinds of objections, and the court has ruled on both of them, 1% to the pretrial and 1% to the other issue, so I can think in addition to that.
All right. I will allow admission of 32 through 74 inclusive.
Thank you. 32. Captain McMurray, on the screen now is State's Exhibit 32. Can you tell us what that shows, sir?
Yes, that's the northwest bedroom of the house at 910 Signet Street.
Okay. Number 33.
That's also the same bedroom.
Okay. And calling your attention to the far rear of the photograph, just about in the middle, there's an object that appears to be like pink and gray and has a pillow or something on top of it.
Yes, it's difficult to see in this photograph that that's a baby crib.
Okay. Number 36.
This is the,
Pardon me, I gave you the wrong number. 34.
this is the front of the house at 910 Signet Street, the white wrought iron fence in front of the house. This is the view from the street.
And 35.
Is pretty much the same view. In this view, you can see the moving, the gate and the driveway of the house.
When you say the driveway of the house, you mentioned earlier that there were some vehicles at the house?
Yes, there were two pickup trucks parked in the driveway of the house.
Okay. And that's just to the right of the white fence that's shown in the photograph, correct?
Yes.
Number 36.
This is the front doorway of the house, the front porch.
And that's looking in straight into the living room. Would that be correct?
That is correct.
And next? What exhibit number is that?
Exhibit number 37 is a similar view. It's also the front porch, front steps of the house, and the front doorway looking into the living room.
Okay, and off to the right of the photograph, there is what appears to be a black pickup?
Yes, that's correct. A black Dodge pickup.
Number 38? Is that correct?
Yes, it is number 38.
Okay.
This is the front entryway, front doorway of 910 Signet Street.
And it shows the area to the left of the front door as you go into the living room area?
Yes, it shows the, I believe it would have been the hinge area of the door.
Okay. Number 39, what's that?
This is the living room of the house, taken from just inside the doorway, the front doorway.
Number 40?
Again, this is the living room of the house, looking kind of in a more southerly direction from the front doorway.
And it shows basically from the front doorway and a little bit to the right.
Yes.
Okay. Number 41.
This is also inside that living room, the front living room.
And that would be if you came inside the door, turned to the right, and looked toward that wall.
That's correct.
Number 42.
This is inside the living room, looking with a view into the kitchen area, which the doorway or the opening to the kitchen is there on the left side of the photograph.
Number 43.
This is the northwest bedroom of the house.
To the right side and bottom of the photograph, there's a pink and white object. Could you tell us what that is?
I believe this is part of the baby crib that was there next to the bed.
Perhaps a diaper bag attached to the crib?
Yes, that's what it appears to be.
Okay. Number 44.
This is also inside that northwest bedroom.
And it appears that you can see part of the mattress on the right side of the photograph and then a bedside table to the left side, correct?
That's correct.
And on the table, on the front right corner of the table, what's that, sir?
That's a cell phone, which is plugged into a phone charger.
State's Exhibit 45. What's that?
This is a similar view to the prior exhibit. The bed in the bedroom is there visible on the right. The cell phone is on the nightstand attached to the charger, and it's been labeled with evidence number 11.
Okay. Let's talk about that for just a minute. The number 11 is on a yellow kind of triangular shaped marker?
Yes, an evidence marker.
Okay. And that's typically used by the Dallas Police Department?
Yes.
Does it identify items that are going to be collected?
Yes, it does. And it shows that the number assigned to that item.
Okay. When the items that have those numbers next to them are collected, is that number then reflected on the packaging?
Yes, it is.
Number 46.
This is another view of the same bedroom. The bed is in the center of the picture, and the baby crib is in the right bottom foreground.
And number 47.
It's a similar view. The bed is to the left, and the baby crib is in the center bottom foreground.
And then above the baby bed or toward the rear of the photograph would be another bedside table?
Yes,
With
and a lamp.
With a lamp on it. Number 48. Is that a little bit closer view of the table from the earlier photograph?
Yes, it is.
And number 49. And that's still a closer view.
That's correct. It's a closer up view of that nightstand to the right side, to the east of the bed.
And there's a cell phone on that stand also that's plugged in?
Yes, that's correct.
And that phone is marked with a marker number 13 in Exhibit 50?
Yes, that's correct.
Number 51. Can you tell us what that is, sir?
That is the closet in that northwest bedroom.
Who's the gentleman in there?
That's Sergeant Byron Fassett, my sergeant.
Okay. He's since retired,
That's correct.
and he's apparently pointing at something. Do you know
Yes,
what he's pointing at?
He's pointing at a 6-hour 40 caliber pistol.
Number 52.
This is a photograph of that 6-hour pistol contained in a white plastic grocery type bag that's been laid on the bed of that bedroom after it was taken out of the top of the closet.
Okay. And number 53, that's just a closer up view.
That's correct.
And number 54, that has one of those evidence markers again,
Yes, evidence marker number 8.
and that would represent the, when packaged, the gun would be in package number 8.
That's correct.
The state's exhibit number 54, or pardon me, 55, what is that, sir?
That's a close-up view of the 6-hour 40 caliber pistol.
And does a serial number appear in the black area just below the barrel on that?
Yes, it does.
Can you read it?
I think I can read it from the monitor. I'm not sure I can read it from the print that's in front of me.
Okay, if you see if you could do that, please.
Serial number is A like Apple, M like Mason, 5488. And the final digit appears to be, I believe, a 6 or an S. Actually, I believe it's a 5.
If you examine up to the first number is a 5, is that correct?
That's correct.
The last number, after comparing it to the first one, does that appear to be a 5 or a 6?
It appears to me to be a 6.
Got to check this, thank you. Number 56.
It's a view of the other side of the pistol.
And it appears the grip may have a crack in it.
Yes.
Okay. Number 57.
This is a view of the pistol and the 2 magazines that have been unloaded.
Number 58.
This is a view of the bed in that same bedroom with a pink blanket laying on it.
Number 59.
A much better view of the baby crib, which was to the on the east side of the bed in that bedroom.
And number 60.
Another view of the baby crib.
Okay. Let's go to number 61. Tell us what that is.
This is the northeast bedroom of the house.
Okay, so we've gone from the northwest bedroom to the northeast bedroom.
Correct.
Okay. And this is the one with kind of the lavender walls?
Yes.
Can you describe for us what kind of items you see there?
This is Exhibit 61, correct?
Correct.
There's a baby stroller on the right side of the photograph, and it's difficult to tell from this picture, but there's a stuffed animal on the left side of the photograph.
Okay. Number 62.
This is another view of that same bedroom. With the point of view focused a little bit more to the left, you can see two stuffed animals in the background.
Number 63.
And this is another view of that same bedroom.
And number 64.
These were diaper bags that were inside that bedroom.
The one that is kind of in the middle of the photograph has a light gray bottom and a pink and white top, is it not?
Yes.
Number 65.
This is another photograph taken inside that bedroom, and there's a, I don't know how you would describe it, but similar to what you see for homecoming moms. It's a frilly thing that has ribbons hanging down from it.
It says it's a girl?
Yes.
Okay. Number 66.
Baby items on top of a chest of drawers. A brush, a comb, a little baby cap.
Okay. And number 67. Is that the left side of that same dresser top
Yes, it is.
with more baby items?
Correct.
Number 68. What's that?
This is the black Dodge pickup that was parked in the driveway of the residence.
Number 69.
This is a side view of that same black Dodge pickup parked in the driveway.
Number 70.
Again, a side view of the black Dodge pickup.
And we're talking about the driver's side, aren't we?
Yes,
In
we
both
are.
of those.
Correct.
Number 71.
This is a front view of that black Dodge pickup.
Number 72.
This is a view inside the pickup of a baby carrier.
Number 73.
This is a photograph taken inside the kitchen of the home at 910 Signet Street. Kitchen chairs are visible, and on the tile floor there's a black pellet pistol.
Okay. And you say that's a pellet pistol?
That is a pellet pistol.
Number 74. Is that a close-up of the pellet pistol?
Yes, it is.
I'm going to show you what's marked as States Exhibit 127. Do you recognize that?
Yes, that's the .40 caliber 6-hour pistol recovered in the northwest bedroom closet.
And if you close the lid and look at the longest flap on the lid. The one closest to you.
I'm sorry.
That has a number 8 on it, doesn't it?
That's correct.
Now, if you recall, the number 8 was the same number as that yellow marker, was it not?
That's correct.
I'm going to show you what's marked as States Exhibit number 122. And ask you to describe that for us, please.
It's an evidence package labeled item number 11. described as a gray Alcatel one-touch cell phone. And the IMEI number is noted, and also the property tag number is noted on the package.
If we could look at Exhibit 45, please. State's Exhibit 45 that's being displayed on the monitor is a picture you described earlier as the bedside table with a cell phone and the item number 11 next to it, or marker number 11 next to it?
Yes, that's correct. The cell phone that was on the west side of the bed on the nightstand in the northwest bedroom.
And on State's Exhibit 122, is there an item number on that exhibit?
Yes, item number 11.
Okay. So that would correspond to the telephone that's shown in State's Exhibit 45?
That's correct.
Your Honor, at this time, the State would move for the admission of State's Exhibit 122.
Short, the object, pursuant to our pretrial litigation, and as per standing objection.
You stand objection, prior ruling is adopted, all vote against 122.
If I could have one moment, Your Honor. That's all I have, thank you.
Mr. Sharp? Mr. Smart? You keep doing that, and I apologize. I also kind of got preoccupied, forgot to put my robe on. Rush to get that thing turned, I'll put it back on. Mr. Smart, do you have any questions? Detective McMurray, thank you very much, sir. You can step down, you are excused. Have a seat straight back to Dallas.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next witness, please.
Call Richard Martinez.
And the box contains the public in.
No, the box contains the $40.
$40, 6 hours. Okay. Let's retrieve that again, please.
The song is the testimony you're about to begin the case now hearing the nothing but the truth. So we got.
Would you tell us your name, please?
Yes, sir. My name is Richard Martinez.
And what's your occupation, sir?
I am a senior corporal of the Dallas Police Department in Texas.
And what are your duties with the police department?
I'm currently assigned, for the past 10 years, I've been assigned for the Dallas Police Department. 10 years. I've been in the Dallas Police Department SWAT team.
Tell us what a SWAT team is.
Our SWAT team is multifaceted. We handle high-risk apprehensions, high-risk warrants, dignitary protections. We handle, in situations, hostage rescue is what we mostly train for.
And were you in that position on November 19th of 2016?
November 19th, yes, I've been assigned
Okay.
since then.
Were you called out to duty about midnight on that day, or that morning?
November 17th? On November 17th, I was called out to duty, yes.
Sir, I want to show you a report from the Dallas Police Department, and just want you to read something to yourself.
Yes.
Starting about right there. reading that, is your memory refreshed as to what day you were called in regarding a search warrant?
According to that document, it was November 19th.
Okay.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Overruled.
So, where were you when you were called in?
I was at home.
Okay. And were other people in a SWAT unit called out also?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember about how many?
Roughly, it'd be an estimate, but about 20 of us at least.
And what was the purpose of the call out?
It was for an apprehension of a suspect who involved in a homicide, and it was a child had been taken.
So you went to hopefully recover a child
Yes,
and perhaps a suspect.
correct.
When the SWAT team was called out, did they all assemble somewhere?
Yes, we did.
And what did you do during the time you were assembled?
At the time of the assembly, which we call our command post, it's our planning process. It was roughly about a quarter mile from the area that we're going to, or the location. It's where our commanders take part, plan the event, and give us our positions. We get our gear, we put our gear on, and we get ready for that warrant or the execution of the warrant.
Okay. So you were actually going to execute a warrant at 910 Signet Street
Correct.
in Dallas, Texas?
Correct.
Did the SWAT teams actually execute that warrant
Yes, sir, we did.
at about 4:30 in the morning?
That's correct.
I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 31 and ask if you can identify that for us.
Yes, sir, I can.
What is it?
That's a floor plan of the residence at 910 Signet in Dallas.
And did you use that floor plan in the planning of your operation?
This was drawn after the fact.
Did you have a similar drawing before?
Similar, yes, but it wasn't as accurate as this.
Did your drawing that you had before identify 3 doors?
I'm sorry, for what?
Doors?
At the time, yes.
And the State's Exhibit 31 also reflects 3 doors, does it not?
Yes, sir, it does.
And was that important to the planning of the SWAT operation?
It's very important. Yes, sir, it is.
Why?
Each door is a breach point, as we call it. It's a method of entry. It's where we're going to go inside the structure. So in this case, we had 3 openings, 3 doors, and each team was comprised of making an entry into that door, into the structure.
You said making an entry.
Yes, sir.
Tell us how you went about or plan to go about doing that.
This was a planned event, and we had some time to plan the process. In this case, we were going to use what we call energetic breaching, which consists of limited amount of explosives. We set the explosives on the door. At that point, I was the assistant breacher. We had another breacher who was a primary breacher. We set the explosives on the door. We fall back to a safe position. At that point, every door had an explosive breach set on the door. Our sergeant, which is my sergeant, had command of the radio at that point, and he gives us a command when to execute that.
Okay, and you called that an energetic breach?
We call it an energetic breach.
And is the way that you, first of all, the type of explosives and the way that you set the explosives meant to assure entry but keep the damage inside down to a minimum?
Damage inside is very limited. Most of what we call the overpressure, which is the pressure from the explosive itself, the heat, the light, and the sound is mostly stays on the outside of the door. Inside is very limited, and it's a calculated risk. we're dealing with explosives. But most of it stays on the outside. In this case, when the door was breached, it didn't even fall over. It just buckled, and it just stayed. There was a sofa behind it, so when it buckled, it stayed on the sofa, and there was no damage on the inside.
You said there were 3 doors, each had a team assigned to it?
Yes, sir.
Are those doors identified on State's Exhibit 31?
Yes, sir.
How are they identified?
Well, it's identified as an opening, as a line drawn in a perpendicular fashion. And that's how we signify that it's a door.
Okay. Can you tell us which side of that diagram represents the north direction?
I believe it's the Charlie side is the north direction.
And the Charlie side,
The back side, if I'm not mistaken. The way we number this is we look at the front side in this case and we call it alpha. And we go clockwise, so it's alpha side. The left side of the house is the Baker side. C side is the Charlie side, and the right side of the house is the Delta side. We usually don't use north and south because sometimes it's confusing the way the streets run sometimes. But that is always based on the structure, and it's a no-fail way to determine which direction or which location we're at.
and you think showing this diagram would help explain to the jury what you all did?
Of course. Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we've moved to the admission of State's Exhibit 31.
Object, this is all cumulative to Detective McMurray.
What was the basis for the objection?
Cumulative to Detective McMurray's testimony.
Overrule the objection. I do think it'll help the jury understand the entry how it did 31. Thank you.
Officer Martinez. You could use the end of the pen there. Can you reach that comfortably?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, why don't you show us what you were talking about as far as the alpha, beta, Charlie?
Okay. This here is actually labeled as alpha. It's alpha labeled as alpha 6 because we also use a clock in this place. The front of the location, which is alpha, 6 o'clock position as we're looking at a clock. Baker, this is the Baker side, 9 o'clock position. This is the Baker side, this is the Charlie side, and then we have the Delta side.
Okay. And can you tell us where the driveway was located?
The driveway is going to be on the Delta side.
So you were assigned to which team?
Alpha side.
How many people were on that team?
I believe it was 5 and then the sergeant, 6 of us.
And after the doors were removed, show us where you went.
At that point, we made entry into this. We also have a numbering system. It's Alpha 1, Alpha 2. So we went inside the Alpha 2 door, made entry. We linked up with the team going inside the Delta side door. We searched. We travel in 2-man teams. That's how we search. We continue to search. This team, which entered from the Baker side, made entry. They continued to search as well. My partner and I just continued to search, make sure that everything was taken care of. When we got to this laundry room is when we saw a door that was still closed. And because there was an explosive breach at that point, the door was somewhat covering the door that was closed into this bedroom.
So just so that we can kind of have it on the record, as the entry that you made is toward the bottom of the diagram.
Yes, sir, correct.
And you went through the living room, through the, is that the kitchen?
The kitchen, yes, sir.
And then to the hallway that's just above the kitchen.
Yes, sir.
You turned left and then came back toward the in the direction that you had first entered the house?
In the direction, yes, sir.
There's a wall there with a door.
Correct.
Did you go through that?
My partner removed the door that was laying in front of it. It was
One that had been on the
big
outside of the house?
Correct.
Okay.
Once he removed it, he breached that door. I made entry into that room.
If I can see number 43. First of all, let's do a couple of photographs. First of all, State's Exhibit 34. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, sir, I did.
And is that the portion of the house that would be the alpha side
Correct. That would be the alpha side.
where you entered?
Yes, sir.
Then State's Exhibit 43. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is that?
That is a bed that was in the bedroom I entered.
It appears that, could we show 43? It's now shown on the monitor. That is a view straight in to the bedroom from the doorway that you entered. Is that correct?
Correct.
To the right at the front of the photograph, what was that?
The right is a crib.
When you went into that doorway, did you see any people?
Yes, I did.
Who did you see?
I saw a female laying on the bed, as well as a male laying on the bed.
Show you State's Exhibit 32. Do you recognize that?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
That is the headboard of that bed, for the same bed.
So you would actually be standing off to the right of
Correct.
the photograph?
Yes, sir.
You said that when you entered, you saw a male and a female?
Correct.
Where in relation to this photograph was the female?
As you're looking at the bed, the female's going to be on the left side.
You can also, in that photograph, see a cell phone with like a turquoise or teal cord attached.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And she was laying on the side of the bed closest to that phone. Correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And then State's Exhibit 33. What's that?
That is the crib that's immediately to the right upon making entry into that room.
Was there anyone in that crib?
Yes, sir, there was.
Describe that person.
It was an infant child.
Was that child removed from that crib?
Yes, sir, he was.
Tell us how that happened.
As I entered the room, we have our rifles, which is our primary weapon. We see the two individuals on the bed, so I point my weapon at them, give them verbal commands not to move, and then to show me their hands. At that point, our objective was to recover the child. As I'm speaking to both parties, my partner continues to clear the rest of the room. At that point, more operators or police officers enter the room. One in particular got between myself and the crib, which is a tactic that we use to create that separation of a, in this case, of a possible hostage or possible suspect. As he did that, Another officer entered, picked up the child, and took him outside the room.
You said that you were speaking to the occupants. What language were you using?
I used English, and then I used Spanish.
So both?
Yes.
Are you a native Spanish speaker?
Yes.
The people on the bed were taken into custody?
Correct.
Did you learn their names?
No, sir, I didn't.
Did you actually remove them from the room?
They were removed, but not by me. What we do is if we're pointing our weapon at someone, it's considered our cover. And then we have an assistant who comes in and provides the handcuffs or takes them into custody. We each have an assignment.
Very good. You said the child was removed from the room.
Yes, sir.
Did you see the child again?
I did see the child as I was leaving the residence.
And where was the child?
Being treated by our Dallas Fire Rescue personnel, which is our paramedics, ambulance, fire department.
Would it be typical for that child then to be taken to the hospital?
It would be typical, yes, sir, just for safety reasons.
That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Smart? Officer Martinez, thank you, sir. You can step down and you are excused.
Thank you.
Next witness, please.
State will call Task Officer Joseph Danner.
You solemnly swear the testimony about giving the case now hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Permission inquiry, Your Honor.
You may.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Joseph Danoff,
Sir, where are you employed?
the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department.
Are you assigned to any special investigation group?
Yes, as a collateral part of my duty, I'm assigned as a task force officer with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, specifically to their CAST unit. That stands for the Cellular Analysis Survey Team.
What does the Cellular Analysis Survey Team do?
But they do a few things. First, it was developed to review cases where cell phones were involved. So if you think about like your phone bill, these phone companies keep records for, if nothing else, if somebody calls in and complains that, they have dropped calls or things of that nature. But it is referred to as call detail records. They indicate the date and times you're making calls or text messages, things of that nature, who you're contacting, and a separate part that law enforcement gets is the location information off those. So we use those to identify, to relate them to specific events that occurred in the past. We sometimes use those for things that could happen in the future. But knowing where those cell sites are and combined with what we call the call detail records, we're able to tell where a phone was at a specific point in time. And we use those to help local, state, and federal agencies in investigations to either include or exclude a phone as being in the area of an event.
So if I understand that right, you're looking at cell phone records to figure out where a phone was or whether it was even where you suspect it could have been.
Yes, oftentimes we're able to put them in an area of a crime, but there's been occasions where, for example, we work a lot with our homicide unit, and they may develop a phone of interest, and we're able to look at that and exclude that phone from being in that area so that they can continue their investigation.
For a moment, let's talk about what it takes to become a police officer. Did you go through any special training or education to become a police officer?
Yes, at the time it wasn't needed, but I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and get hired on the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. I had 6 months of the police academy before I was allowed to put a uniform with the badge on.
Since that time, how long have you been a police officer?
Coming up on 21 years.
How long have you been a member of the CAST team?
Since June of 2016.
Was there special training that goes into becoming a member of that team?
Yes.
Can you describe that for the jury?
Yes. The first part of this certification process, it's called a basic, CAST basic. It's depending on which stage you go in at, it's a 2 or 3 day course. But essentially it's just to kind of get your feet wet to see if it's something you like. You are given phone records from each of the providers, and the 4 main ones are AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, and Verizon. So they give you these records, and it's fairly simple, not a lot of heavy lifting. They just give them to you to familiarize yourself because they come in different formats. For example, AT&T and T-Mobile will send theirs in UTC. I think you guys may have spoken to about that before.
Why don't you explain UTC again, just in case?
Yeah, so UTC is it's not a time zone. The important thing is to know, like here, I'm from Kansas City. We're in the Central Time Zone. So in Central Standard Time, we are minus 6 hours from UTC. And in, like right now, we're in Central Daylight Time, we're minus 5. The other 2 companies, Sprint, Verizon, put those in, they're not in UTC, they're in the local time.
So you
That is the essentially the first part of the certification process. It's not a pass-fail, it's just to see if you like it or not. The second part is it's called an advanced project pinpoint. That one is a lot more in-depth. You're given real cases to work from each of the phone providers, and each stage of that is pass-fail. That one's a week long. And you get in a little bit more about the technologies that the phone companies use. Because depending on those technologies, you can get different reports from different companies. For example, Sprint and Verizon offer what's called as per-call measurement data, whereas T-Mobile is just now getting into that, and AT&T does not do that yet. So that's the second part of it, and that is a pass-fail. If you pass that one, you go on to a 4-week certification, what they call Cert 1 and Cert 2. The first is a 2-week where you go over radio frequency theory, and you go, providers are brought in from, each of the providers are brought in, and you'll have a person from their legal compliance department, and they'll also bring in a network engineer. So we're able to learn from them, about the different reports, obviously what legal demands are required to get that information. We're also taught by the engineers themselves how they develop their networks and design their cell networks, and where there may be a bunch of cell towers in one spot versus other spots. And then there's other instructors from the private sector that dig into even more of the technology. In that, during that, you're also given scenarios or cases to work, and that, again, is a pass-fail. And then lastly, the last part of it, which is another 2-week course, is we go over drive testing. And drive testing is we use equipment that the cell phone providers themselves use to optimize their network. And based off this equipment, we were able to tell the footprint or the actual coverage area for a cell tower. And we were giving one assignment during that 2 weeks, and part of it is you work it, you're given, it's an actual case, so you have a true victim, real location, and then you do a drive test, and you testify to that. So they fly in prosecutors, district attorneys, United States attorneys to come in, and they play the role of the defense attorney, the prosecutor, and then the judge. And then my class would be the jury, and it's called a moot court, and it's videoed, and that also is pass-fail. So if you still are crazy enough to still want to go through with it, and your head hasn't exploded, you are certified to testify as a CAST asset.
Are you so certified?
Yes.
How long did it take you to acquire that certification?
My process was approximately 3 to 4 years. I always stressed that, when I started my most current unit. I'm in it's called the Kansas City Criminal Task Force. My partner was kind of a tech guy, and I started that in roughly October of 2006. And he was my FTO, my field training officer, and so we started kind of doing this back then, and were successful in finding, fugitives in extreme situations, missing kids and suicidal parties. But we kind of did it with, if you can imagine, taking a ruler and going like line by line. It was very tedious. We didn't have all the tools that we have now. We also didn't have, back then, a clear understanding of how phones work and communicate with the cell tower. So CAST puts all that together, and they put out a pretty good product.
Who is doing this certification? Is this a government entity or a private business?
It's the Federal Bureau of Investigations is the one that certifies you, but there are private instructors that come in. Like I mentioned, the phone providers themselves. So it's a big group.
So are you an FBI employee, or are you part of an organization the FBI oversees?
I'm a task force officer with them, so it's kind of a collateral duty to me being a detective with Kansas City Police Department.
So with the FBI, your title would be task force officer?
Yes.
Have you had the opportunity to conduct these type of searches and locate people using historical cell phone data?
Yes, many times.
As part of that, have you had to testify as an expert in the field of historical cell phone data analysis?
Yes.
Have you ever failed to qualify as an expert?
No.
Judge, at this time I would offer Mr. Daniff as an expert in the field of historical cell phone data analysis.
Mr. Smart, do you wish to accept your report? I'll designate Detective Daniff an expert in historical cell phone data analysis.
May I call you Mr. Daniff?
Yes.
Sir, were you called in as part of a operation to locate a missing infant in Sedgwick County, Kansas on or about November 18th, 2016?
Yes.
Where were you dispatched from?
Kansas City, Missouri.
So still doing your Kansas City duties, but you came to Wichita to work?
Yes.
What organization sent you here?
We were called through the Wichita Police Department, but how it works is CAST, which I mentioned, it's a big group. CAST itself is only comprised of, there's 63 of us throughout the country. But they fall under the Violent Crimes Against Children unit within the FBI headquarters. Within that unit is also, it's called CARD. It stands for Child Abduction Rapid Deployment. CAST is like a package. When CARD gets deployed, and CAST goes with it. And that was my initial involvement in this incident.
So when did you arrive in Sedgwick County?
I believe it was late at night on the 17th, and could have been early in the morning on the 18th, and then we had a briefing that early morning on the 18th.
So you drive down, the team starts to assemble on the 18th. Where were you assembling?
My role as the CAST asset, my partner and I were assigned to the command post.
Was that established on the 5th floor of the Wichita City building?
Yes, it was.
Can you estimate during the course of this search for the infant how many people were part of that task force or that group?
In the command post or just in general?
In the command post itself.
There was a lot.
More than 5?
Yes,
Less
30.
Okay, 30 at least?
There were a lot of people in there.
Law enforcement officers in and out all the time, different assets being brought to bear?
Yes.
Okay, as part of your role, was a determination made after searching the victim's cell phone to follow up on a lead of a phone number that was of interest in that cell phone?
Yes.
Based upon information you were given about a specific cell phone number, do you recall whether the Wichita Police sought exigent records from T-Mobile?
They did.
Were you included as being a recipient of those records?
Yes, I was on the pings.
So when you say pings, what do you mean?
The geolocation for the phone.
So that information was emailed directly to you by T-Mobile.
Yes.
Now that gave you the kind of live data as where the phone of interest might be.
Yes, and we call that the prospective information as opposed to historical.
So the jury can kind of understand this process. Do you start analyzing historical data first, or were you looking at pings first?
At the time, we did not have the pings, so we were looking at the historical data.
I've placed in front of you State's Exhibit, I believe it's a binder marked 29.
Yes.
That has previously been admitted. Could you take a look at that? Does that appear to be the historical data that you were asked to analyze on November 17, 2018? 2016?
Yes.
As part of your analysis, did you start mapping, for lack of a better word, where the cell phone number of interest had been previously located?
Yes.
Just for the sake of the jury, what phone number are we talking about?
I believe it's 316-689-1026.
As part of your overall analysis, did you prepare a presentation about your analysis and provide that to local law enforcement after it was completed?
I did.
Would that assist your testimony with the jury?
Yes.
I believe I placed it in front of you as State's Exhibit 30. It should be face down in front of you. Does that appear to be your report?
Yes.
Judge, at this time I would move to admit State's Exhibit 30 for publication to the jury to assist in the testimony of this witness.
We object to the PowerPoint, we object to the testimony, and we ask for a standing objection to such appropriate obligation.
I'll overrule your objection. I'll give you a standing objection. Objection 30 is admitted.
I'm going to hand you the PowerPoint clicker. Perhaps you can use it to explain as you go through your slides. But before you do that, I want to show you, previously showed this to Mr. Smart, State's Exhibit 29A. For the record, Judge, I had shown Mr. Smart Exhibit 30 prior to.
Yes, it has.
I'm showing you State's Exhibit 29A. It's 4 pages that are connected together. Do you recognize those pages?
Yes.
On the bottom of those pages, there are corresponding numbers 121, 120, 119, and 117. Is that correct?
Yes.
What do you recognize those 4 pages to be?
These were pings from T-Mobile sent to myself and Detective Brian Safras.
With the Wichita Police Department?
Yes.
So you received those pings. Was that from a T-Mobile account?
Yes.
And were you able to use those pings as part of your prospective analysis of where the phone might presently be at the time of the ping?
Yes, I was.
Are they fair and accurate records as to what you received via email from T-Mobile?
Yes.
Judge, I'd move to admit 29A at this time.
Mr. Smart?
Object and ask for a standing objection for such appropriate obligation.
Objection is noted. I'll rely on prior rulings. I'll overrule your objection. 29A is admitted.
So did you also use those 4 pings in 29A to produce your report?
Yes, I did.
Let's start with the beginning of your report. If you can kind of walk the jury through the report itself, that might assist them with understanding your methodology and the way in which you conducted your exam.
Yes.
We're looking at the first slide. Can we move to the next slide? I believe you have the PowerPoint clicker. What was that, just kind of describing the background information?
Yes. This slide essentially says who contacted me in regard to conducting this analysis. lists the date of the crime. And the methodology is kind of what we briefly spoke about before, is having your phone bill, other than I get that extra piece which gives me the cell site locations, and the cell phone companies know where their towers are, and they have a list for that. We kind of marry those two together, and based off that, then we're able to identify which cell tower and sector was used by that phone for connections.
Can we go to the next slide, please? So what is this a just depiction of?
So we'll start, if we look at this, the picture on the left, not the circle, it's kind of an older school cell tower where you've got the big pole and you see these kind of like rectangular shapes kind of circled around it. I'm sure if you drive around the city, you'll see them all over. Anymore now, you probably don't see them, but they're out there. They're attaching to buildings. They hide them in church steeples now. A lot of communities and cities have, they're making it harder for the phone companies to put them up just on the poles. So they're using pre-existing structures to do that. But the important thing to note is if you look at that picture on the left, and I think you can see the 1, 2, and the 3, those are what we call sectors. And the engineers set up these cell towers to essentially cover 360 degrees for the radio frequency. And those are broken up into 3 sectors. They do that dividing each sector up to 120 degrees. So if you think of a birthday cake and you cut it, you had 2 other people that wanted a piece of the cake. To cut that up evenly, you would cut it into wedges that would measure 120 degrees each. You put those back together and it's 360 degrees. So kind of like using the birthday cake, if you look at the picture on your right, that is essentially an overhead look of the picture on the left. If you were standing above it looking down, you can see that the arrow might not work on that, but if you look at the number 1 and you've got the arrow pointing out, that's depicting the direction that the radio frequency would be going or emitting from that particular sector.
When you say radio frequency, is that what's coming to my cell phone so that I can connect to the network?
Yes. So if you were wondering how cell phones connect, and if I can use my phone as just a prop only.
If that would be a demonstrative aid that would assist your testimony, please do.
So as my phone is sitting here right now, I'm not on the phone, obviously I'm not on the phone, but what it's doing, it's still doing something, and yours would be too. And what it's doing, it's listening. What it's listening for is the strongest signal coming from the tower. And it not only can listen to one tower, it can listen to multiple, but what it does is it ranks them. So my phone don't know where these towers are, but based off the signal strength coming to my phone, it knows that which tower that in sector that it sees as the strongest and the clearest signal. That doesn't mean it's the closest cell tower, but which typically is. But it knows that when I go to make a phone call right now or receive one, it already knows that what tower that it chose to utilize. And then it ranks the other ones from best to worst.
So when you do make that call, because we're talking about cell phones, and it connects to that signal tower, is that captured in your experience as part of that historical cell phone information?
Yes. What happens on that connection is that's how you generate your call detail records.
And so the records themselves would tell you the tower it connected to as well as the sector, the piece of the pie that it was directionally connecting to. Is that right?
Correct. And then of course it gives you the date and time, the start time, the end time, the duration. Was it a voice or SMS transaction?
And when you say, just for clarity, what does SMS mean?
Oh, I'm sorry, a text message or short message service.
Can we see the next slide? What is this a depiction of?
So this is an important slide, and oftentimes it confuses people, so to keep trying to figure out an easier way to explain it. So each sector, how you determine, we call the orientation of it.
Judge, your approach?
Sure. Okay, I'm going to excuse the jury for just a couple minutes. All right, we're out of the presence of the jury. Mr. Smart?
Judge, about 10 minutes ago, Ms. Sesmas told me that she was having chest pain again, was having a hard time proceeding. I asked her if she wanted me to do anything about that. She said, not yet, and that she'd let me know. Now she's telling me that she's thinking about just asking to be excused, that she was being sick. So I would just ask for a few minutes to adjourn to that call and talk with her and see if I can persuade her to stay.
All right, we'll take a couple minute recess, allow her to use the restroom, visit with her, and then come back in about 5 minutes. We'll test the waters and we'll see where we are.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be in recess in about 5 minutes.
When she has restroom,
Move around if you like.
Thank you.
Thank you. You just did it. Jason, you want to kind of knock on the door and see if you can get attention?
Judge just wanted to touch base.
Still talking.
Sorry?
Still talking to her?
Okay.
Still up in the air?
Mr. Smart?
Go in the record, Judge?
Yes.
Judge, my client is not willing to name her presence to be here, but she's not here. She cannot come out. She's asking for medical attention again.
All right. We're going to break at 4:30 anyway. I'll go and excuse the jury from 9 o'clock on Monday morning. I'll authorize the defendant to be taken to the clinic in the jail. If they think she needs further attention beyond their abilities to provide, that she can be transported to a local hospital. I also want counsel to look into, I've been looking, but I haven't had much of an opportunity really to do it, the voluntary absence, whether that includes an illness. Most absences of the defendant from a criminal trial are usually either voluntary because it's their choice not to be here, they just don't want to be here, or the court imposes an absence of being voluntary because of disruptive behavior after warning. I want to know if a persistent illness or persistent feeling of persistent bad feeling, and then the defendant's request to be relieved present at the trial constitutes a voluntary absence for some member as a foul voluntary absence. I'd like to know that on Monday morning. But we'll just recess today. I know that messes up some of the state's witnesses. We'll see what you can do by getting back to Monday.
You'll be all right. Thank you.
Anything further before bringing the jury in? Have a seat.
You may just have to go ahead and select all your stuff. Can she tell her? Sure. Thank you.